If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
We're in Way Media. Welcome back, Midnight viewers, truly, to Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. I'm Father Malone, and with me on the mic is the pug with all the drugs. All the hugs, all the shrugs. Got it. Miss Ripley Jean. How are you, young lady? I know, it's been hot lately. Also on board, or behind the board, fresh from her sojourn in the backyard shed and a brief tour of the sub-Saharan desert, Miss Foxy Brown. Do some weird clicking into the mic, you nomadic freak. There you go. Let's jump right in. We've got a lot to cover, a lot to catch up on. Ready? Actual Roundup. Yellow Jackets continues to falter. Although there are a few bright spots, I'm loving Shauna's husband Jeff and her daughter Callie. They're especially good this season, as is some of the funkier revelations about Shauna herself. Those are tantalizing, but they're like droplets of water in an otherwise fallow period. Get to the fucking twisted already. In better news, I finished Jedi Fallen Order. And my lightsaber is fucking cherry, baby. Got it tricked out. It's mostly the mage's skin with a violet blade, double-bladed, which I think is excessive, but sometimes it's nice to have. Oh, what a fucking dork you're listening to. Anybody watching Hunting Party? That's on Peacock. It's only like 6 episodes. Pretty intriguing. Feels like a 90s show in its construction. There's a secret underground prison that's populated with the worst killers in the world. So bad they've been officially publicly executed. Kind of like La Femme Nikita. But instead of turning them into assassins, they've just got them locked up. Anyway, the opening scene, a bomb goes off, killing untold number of prisoners and releasing just as many. That's the premise. Get the killers back. It is a solid cast, solid action, and provides a good old dose of Freak of the Week vibes. Plus, what the hell was that prison anyway? Remember right after Lost, everything had some mystery box situation, including a show about Alcatraz? There was a Spielberg show about some expedition in the Amazon with that guy from across the universe, the blonde dude. Am I just rambling? Yes, I have a ton of useless knowledge I have left over from last week, including the fact that every episode I tell myself I'm going to do a rundown of all the new trailers and let you know which ones look like they're worth a damn, or at least the ones that have got me hyped. Timing couldn't be more perfect to do it than this week. What with that several minutes long ode to uncomfortable canvas furniture that was the Avengers Doomsday trailer. A slow pan of 26 names of actors we all assumed would be in the movie. X-Men was a surprise. The original X-Men, I guess, are returning. Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Rebecca Romijn, James Marsden, Kelsey Grammer, and Channing Tatum? Oh, okay, that's kind of exciting. Alan Cumming! That actually is exciting. But as cool as that reveal might be, there were a couple of glaring omissions. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, She-Hulk. Also, I guess we know who survives the Thunderbolts movie, huh? You think maybe they could have held back on the reveal that a bunch of the characters in the movie that's coming out next month are gonna survive the movie? Speaking of Thunderbolts, asterisk, I am fucking stoked. I know a bunch of you are out there saying it's just Suicide Squad. Well, guess what? Suicide Squad is just the Dirty Dozen, assholes. And Thunderbolts is more like Kelly's Heroes. Thunderbolts manages to evade the trap that most of these types of flicks fall into. The members aren't all that villainous to begin with. They are low-level fucking Marvel villains. Several work as mercenaries for either side anyway. None of them have, say, attempted mass murder. Suicide Squad is stuck with genuinely bad people that they have to soften to the point that they're unrecognizable. Harley Quinn is a psychopath, y'all. I don't know how everyone forgot that. I know she escaped an abusive relationship and she's loud and proud in her relationship with Ivy these days, but she will still feed you to hyenas for no reason at all. The closest we've gotten to actual Harley Quinn was that Birds of Prey flick. She's so fucking chaotic there. And whatever way she's swinging these days, I think all genders can agree, without Harley, there is no cosplay community. People have always gone to conventions in costume, but that lady inspired a ferocity and dress-up previously unknown. Do you think Harley is the hottest? I do. But your opinion may differ. Hit me up at fathermalone71@gmail.com. Let me know your dorky crush. Is it Catwoman? I think most DC-leaning people will say Miss Kyle, but I don't know. I'm asking. That goes with everything we're talking about on the show. If you agree, disagree, have another point of view, feel free to drop me a line at fathermalone71@gmail.com, or you'll have better luck on the socials, probably, at fathermalone on the Insta and the Threads and the skies of blue. Quite a few of you have reached out to say how relieved you are that Miss Foxy Brown made her way back home. I think I've thanked you all individually, but if I missed any of you, I'm thanking you here. It was truly appreciated. Do you know, when she came back, I scooped her up and walked around clutching her and bawling for like an hour straight, after which I fed her and Ripley, and then I let Ripley outside, and Foxy jumped down and started strutting out the door. Fuck you, cat. You're indoors forever. I mentioned this over on the crossover episode with Noise Junkies about the movie Crossroads, but the trailer for Ryan Coogler's new movie is online. It's called Sinner. It comes out at the end of April. It's a Prohibition-era supernatural action gangster flick. I think I'm more excited for this film than anything coming down the pike. Check that one out. There are several exorcism flicks on the way. Got Al Pacino in one. There's also a flick called Project Silence, which is about a group of people trapped on a suspension bridge. It seems a very Final Destination. You know what else looks a bit like Final Destination? The new Final Destination movie, Bloodlines. Can we retire that as a subtitle for any long-running franchise? I don't care if it's the perfect title for your summation, reimagining, reinvestment, legacy sequel, prequel, whatever the fuck. Bloodlines is taken. Move along. That movie looks good, though, the new Final Destination movie. And any Final Destination movie is going to be more fun than the most ponderous goddamn still photographs we're getting as horror these days. One other thing, not a trailer, not a movie, podcast. Dana Carvey has had a bit of a renaissance lately with his SNL 50th appearances and the success of his show that he does with David Spade. But a couple of years ago, he put out one season of a show called The Weird Place, which is basically an audio Twilight Zone, right down to Carvey's Rod Serling impression. And he does all the voices, naturally. Each episode is short and sweet, interesting stories that I think are worthy of the original Twilight Zone, but more importantly, they are very, very funny, with really oddball observances. For some reason, the fact that after a particular eventful moment, a character paused to have a taco dinner and watch television just struck me as all kinds of funny. The show is a nice reminder that Carvey is a pure entertainer who doesn't need all the tics and mugging that he sometimes devolves into in order to really kill. The Weird Place. They're like 20 minutes each. You can hear the entire season in like an hour. Well, I can't really prevaricate any longer. We're going to have to deal with the princess in the room. Not you, sweetie. You're more like Princess Leia, by the way. Heir to a fallen kingdom. If I may, when the revolution begins, can we have Leia as our de facto symbol? What better banner do you want to rally behind? Seriously. I am unapologetically a Disney person. My late wife and I honeymooned in Disneyland, where we anticipated going on the Haunted Mansion 1 million times, but we were married on Halloween, so when we got to the park, it was already themed with Nightmare Before Christmas, so we ended up going a handful of times. You know, not everyone thinks that movie is as magical as those who were raised on it. Some of us thought it peculiar that a champion of the misunderstood, Mr. Tim Burton, would craft a story that essentially says, know your place. Whatever lot you've been assigned in life, that's it, baby. Do not seek outside interests. I suppose the lesson could also be know your limitations, but that's equally fucked up for a kid's movie. But I digress. Look, I love Disney, but I'm not totally insane. My place isn't tricked out in Disneyana. I'm not dying to be a resident of Celebration, Florida. I know Disney is no longer affiliated, but does a better symbol of Disney fans gone too far exist beyond living in a town created by Disney? At the same time, I never subscribed to the overly facile portrait of Disney Corporation as what's wrong with America. It would always pop up in political art alongside a crucified Ronald McDonald, probably. Of all the evil corporations ruining America, the one whose primary product is joy isn't really high on my list of villainy. I could do a whole show just on the animated films of Disney or the many television series they produced throughout the 50s and 60s. Do you remember Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow? He was a Western English Robin Hood, patrolling the grounds of Rumney Marsh, which, incidentally, was the original name of my hometown of Revere, Massachusetts. In fact, the cemetery in Revere, the oldest one, is called Ye Old Rumney Marsh Cemetery. I could do an entire show just about Disney short subjects. Have you ever seen Dad, Can I Borrow the Car? Narrated by teenage Kurt Russell? It's fabulous. Hell, you could do an episode about the first 5 years of the 1950s, just the output they put out there. Here it is: Cinderella, Treasure Island, Alice in Wonderland, The Story of Robin Hood, Peter Pan, The Sword and the Rose, The Living Desert, Rob Roy the Highland Rogue, The Vanishing Prairie, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, Lady and the Tramp, The African Lion, The Littlest Outlaw. That's 5 years. Even adjusted for inflation, you take all the budgets of all of those movies, it's still nowhere near what we got today. Remember that number, that output, and realize that while Disney cut his teeth with the animated shorts in the early 1930s, it was 1939 that Disney as a studio entered the cinematic arena and declared itself a contender. That was with the first full-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Aside of getting stoned and watching Fantasia, that is my favorite Disney film. It's so slick and yet still experimental. You can feel the desire at the end of every animator's brush to make what you're seeing magic, and you can see innovation in every goddamn scene. It is a triumph, just technically. Never mind the fact that you can already see the dynamism that they'd approach every subject with, baking it into the story. And about that story, do you know there is an early version of the Tale of Snow White where the evil queen is not her stepmother at all? It's her actual mom. That's the only change. How do you like them poison apples? There's a Greek version with poison grapes instead of apples. The Netherlands doesn't have a Prince Charming. It's Snow White's dad that saves her. There's a French version where there are no dwarves but a band of thieves. There's a fucking Scottish version with 13 cats instead of dwarves. And in that one, the Snow White character is on the run because she's been framed for murder. Oh my God, Scotland. If you guys would have one fucking sunny day, I would move there in a heartbeat. The Spanish version dispenses with the magic mirror and instead makes it a demon that whispers into the queen's ear the whole time. Here's my problem with the mirror, by the way. Not the mirror, but its use. We're led to believe in every one of these iterations that the evil queen is above all vain. She needs to hear every day that she's the fairest. And the day she hears different, that girl's gotta go. She's then duped into believing that Snow White is dead. A significant amount of time then passes, and then, the queen asks who's the fairest and the mirror spills the beans. Snow White's alive. You're telling me the queen didn't ask? At any time, up until now, it wasn't the first fucking thing she did when the huntsman showed back up with a stag heart? Now who's the fairest? Still Snow White. The fuck? That's a deer heart. That punk is lying to you, queen. You know, if you heard the Spanish version, you were probably a child in Spain, and I have a sneaking suspicion that you might have imagined Snow White or Blancanieves as looking a bit more like yourself and less like the nearly transparent version in the Disney film. The Snow White story got around, and everywhere it went, people claimed ownership. Hell, it got around cinematically as well. The Disney film is the fourth film adaptation of Snow White, and the second animated. Betty Boop got there in 1931, and she hung around with Cab Calloway. Gasp! Pearls clutched. Since then, there have been dozens of films, hundreds of animated versions, every kind of Snow White, and every amalgamation of numbered henchmen have been visited upon the screens, both big and small. And you never heard word one about fucking any of them. Not a peep. Why? Because who gives a fuck? Oh, racists and misogynists. I used to not understand toxic fandom, and yeah, there are any number of factors that contribute to the forming of these fuckers, and who knows, they might be just shitty across the board, and it isn't narrowly focused as something like racism or hating women, but let us not speak falsely now. The hour is getting late. You throw up a Hitler salute, you're a Nazi. And if you're after a children's movie because it's not white enough, you're a fucking racist. End of story. Here's a question for a future show. What do these assholes enjoy? We know full well what they hate. They organize around their hatred. But does anything make them happy? And can we take that away from them? Seriously, get fucked, you ass clowns. Who roots for failure? How sick in your soul are you? Oh, right, racist and sexist clinging to an ideology that's currently death-rattling. Enjoy yourselves. In 20 years, guess who's going to be the minority in America? Snow White, the new one, the one I'm reviewing, is a colossal fucking failure. I'm serious. It is bafflingly bad. There are moments I just stared, mind reeling, trying to comprehend how this came to be. But the problem wasn't because the casting was colorblind. That may have contributed to its financial downfall a little, but I think really, when you remake an animated film from 90 years ago, spending upwards of $300 million on it, it kind of means you're setting yourself up for failure. This is Cleopatra-sized hubris. You think the company pumping out all of those films in the early 1950s would have taken this risk? Of course not. But they did, so they have to make it as blandly appealing as possible because it has to make $1 billion to be profitable. It's always hilarious when these toxic bros start screaming about woke corporations. Do you know how business works at all, dummies? You go where the money is. The 20-year obsession with IP is proof of that. Do you think one human being was clamoring for a Green Hornet remake? No, but the name was recognizable, so throw money there. I've spent my whole life tempering anything good a corporation has done with the knowledge that if they weren't profiting, they wouldn't have done it. But hell, however you get progress, right? You'll take it. So, if you think Rachel Zegler's casting is this movie's downfall, does that mean Tom Hanks wasn't Italian enough as Geppetto? Was that why Pinocchio was such a failure? Now, can you see why this is such a difficult review to navigate? It should just be, this is a muddle-headed remake, don't see it. Instead, it's become freighted with so much political falderall and nonsense that by dissing the movie, I end up on the side of these toxic pricks. It was the same situation with Ghostbusters, Answer the Call. No vaginas in the jumpsuits. Ick, gross. That was a bad movie. I love all of those actors. I love Paul Feig. Terrible movie. But if you say that, you're associating with these adolescent temper tantrum babies. Comparatively, though, Ghostbusters was a masterpiece compared to Snow White. But let's dispense with the toxic boys. And that fucking producer's kid, who is really the one who needs to shut his mouth. If your daddy is that important, he doesn't need you popping off for him. Also, your dad made the movie. And he cast this girl. And helped all the other boneheaded decisions make it to the screen. What boneheaded decisions, you ask? Let's talk about Snow White.
This was my father's kingdom. A place of fairness. But the queen changed everything.
Take him away!
Your Majesty.
What did you say?
The people need some kindness.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated. Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty. But a lovely maiden I now behold.
I look at you, and I just want to be fairest of them all.
The queen is evil. You must flee into the woods.
My parents always said this forest was a magical place. Anybody here?
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing. Ghost.
You'll be safe from the Queen here.
The Queen stole everything from all of us. We're gonna need your help. It's time to restore our kingdom.
Waiting on a wish, holding out for someday, hoping somehow, someway, there comes a miracle.
Find Snow White.
I close my eyes and see the girl I meant to be.
This is our kingdom, and now we're here to take it back.
You were saying.
I'm sorry, my dear. Did I frighten you?
How about making the seven dwarves CG nightmares? They don't look like the original dwarves. They only vaguely resemble the actors, though Bashful looks awfully white for being played by Titus Burgess. Thank God, or some of these fellas might have started doxing wallflowers everywhere. The dwarves are now immortal, and they have magic powers that manifest as glowing hands and allow them to light up the veins of minerals in the caves. I'm not talking about the performances of the dwarves, by the way. Mark Kebbell, who was in all of the Pirates movies, takes center stage as Grumpy, and he's fucking great. In fact, across the board, the performances in the film are solid, except Gal Gadot. She's very pretty, okay? But there is not a lot of range there. Remember that cringy Imagine performance she did at the start of the pandemic? Well, imagine that in human form poured into a skin-tight shimmery black dress and under an Art Deco stained glass crown. That sums the movie up. It should be called a rope-a-dope, the motion picture. Every time your mind finds purchase, a performance, a bit of set decoration, a costume, you begin to settle in and blow, you're on the fucking pavement wondering what the fuck happened. This movie is 2 fucking hours. A solid 2 hours. How'd they get there? More songs, of course. The Greatest Showman type numbers. You know, rousing tunes that start off small and suddenly everyone's chanting and the music is building and it plateaus and grows higher. It's the musical theater equivalent of Imagine Dragons. All anthems all the time. It's exhausting. But yet again, that's what works, right? That's what audiences like, and we've got how much riding on this? Do what works! Greatest Showman, those pricks. We gotta sell soundtracks, the budget is too high. There's some blow-dried Prince Charming here, but now he's a rogue thief, so he's basically Aladdin, or whatever the archetype happens to be now, the helper guy. We see him in every movie. Why? Because that's what they think we want, so we gotta put him in, because we gotta make the money! The worst offense in the movie, however, is giving Rachel Ziegler Snow White's bob haircut. She'd be better off with a Prince Valiant. I'm serious. Now, listen, I said Snow White is my favorite Disney animated flick. It is. I saw it very young and often. And in the land of too much information, I think Snow White and the Evil Queen are completely formative in what I find attractive and sexy in women. I mentioned my wife and I went to Disney on our honeymoon. There exists a photo of me and Snow White in which I can only describe my expression as giddy. I get a lot of things in life. Giddy ain't one of them. So my feelings of what Snow White should look like are as strong as anyone's. More, maybe. And if they're going to veer away, veer away. She looks awful. Impossible to watch. Not to bring back Tom Hanks, but remember the Da Vinci Code? Neither do I, but I remember that terrible fucking head of hair. And not to bring it back to the toxic folk, because I don't think they have one fucking interest in Snow White at all. But if you're a purist and you want a live-action version of the Disney cartoon, it exists. Disney did that. In 1980, they filmed their theatrical version of Snow White at Radio City Music Hall. Snow White is as white as your Teutonic dreams will allow. And all the dwarves are in masks that are identical to how they look in the film. No surprises. Just a literal 1-for-1. It's on YouTube. Watch it right now. HP and I are going to be doing it over on our Patreon channel if you want to hear more about it there. If you listen to the show with any frequency, you know I have no problem with remakes. And I have no problem with a studio wanting a huge success. I want them to have a huge success. But because there was some vision going in. Snow White is the most by-committee thing I have ever seen, and hopefully it will mark an end to this kind of bullshit. Also, in none of the remakes I mentioned Has anyone made the point that maybe the fucking mirror is the problem? Whispering insecurities and sowing fear? Maybe those ladies should get together and smash that fucking mirror. Let's see that in a remake. You got an idea for a remake? Tell me. Whoa, hit it, HP.
Come and listen to a dog that's hip. Here we go, it's Ribs Picks, yeah!
Thank you, HP. We know we ended up on this network because you were caught stealing pens at the last one. Oh, Triguna Macoites, Tricorum Satis D. It's Bedknobs and Broomsticks, motherfuckers.
Yay! What is going on here?
Soon, you'll see a world of magic beyond anything you've ever seen before. It's Bedknobs and Broomsticks from Walt Disney Productions.
Who's digging in here? Who will defend every inch of England?
To help England fight off an impending invasion, an apprentice witch goes to war with centuries-old empty armor.
Steady on the left.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks, starring the incomparable Angela Lansbury.
My first broom.
As Miss Eglantine Price, who takes a correspondence course in witchcraft. And David Tomlinson as Professor Emilius Brown, a lovable London con man.
I've been cheated.
And three homeless Cockney waifs who alone can help Eglantine find the missing spell. Their search is supersonic. Their adventures are ultra-fantastic.
For some reason, we have great difficulty finding referees round here.
Perugee.
And her magic is enchanting.
Oh, Charlie!
It's grand when you're dancing on the
See Angela Lansbury
bobbing along, singing a song on the bar.
in Walt Disney Productions' most magical motion picture, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It's family entertainment.
So, Disney is trying to get the rights to Mary Poppins. Negotiations are not going well, and somebody has the bright idea to snap up the rights to Mary Norton's book, The Magic Bedknob. If we can't do one magical woman looking after some children in a period piece, we can do another. That was a proper fucking instinct. In fact, during those negotiations, Mary Norton put out a sequel called Bonfires and Broomsticks, and Disney grabbed the rights to them too. And then they started putting a movie together, hiring the Sherman Brothers to write songs and Don DeGrady to write the script, and then they got the rights to Mary Poppins, and it was off to the lock with you, Nessie. They tried to restart it in the mid-60s, but the script, built around the premise of let's take a property with a passing resemblance to Mary Poppins and make it even more Mary Poppins, turned out to be too fucking similar to Mary Poppins, so it was shelved again. Then, finally, in 1970, they brought back everyone, reworked everything, added a deleted song from Mary Poppins, even though we are not making Mary Poppins. Now they just needed a director, so they went with Robert Stevenson, director of, you got it, Mary Poppins. His first order of business was cast the lead of Miss Eglantine Price, a witch in training who must care for 3 orphans during the London Blitz. So he went to Julie Andrews, who thought it was a little too close to Mary Poppins and turned it down. Then, out of loyalty or panic, attempted to re-accept the part, but they had already gone with a red-headed Irish beauty in the form of future Mrs. Lovett and Miss Teapot and Miss Solve All the Murders, Dame Angela Bridget Lansbury. By the way, that's the proper way to spell Bridget. The Irish way. B-R-I-G-I-D. Bridget. And to continue to distance themselves from Mary Poppins, as her co-lead, they cast David Tomlinson, the dad from Mary Poppins. I kind of hate all of the Mary Poppins comparisons because this was that movie for me. I could never relate to the Banks family, that big house with a family too driven and indifferent to care for their children so much that they had to hire a servant on top of all their regular servants in their house to keep their children entertained. I don't know how anyone related to it, honestly. Dig this story. In the middle of World War II, a group of children, 2 boys and a girl, are shipped off to the countryside from London, which is being bombed into rubble. These are poor kids. They talk like they escaped from a Dickens novel, and they're schemers. They're not getting into mischief because they're bored. They're on the run, possibly orphaned, and now put in the care of some strange woman in some rural village on the coast. That setup makes all the difference, because they will travel from the real world to an animated one, and they'll have episodic musical numbers at famed British locations, just like Mary Poppins. But while we were left wondering where Mary gets her magic, there's no doubt with Miss Price, she is a fucking witch, and there's an amulet to be found. And these kids are going to help her do it because bad people are after it. What's that? There's a plot? You're fucking right. Unlike Mary Poppins, not only do they have to skip around the globe using a bed as conveyance to stop the villains in the form of Sam Jaffe. Keen-eared Midnight Viewers listeners will remember his appearance in the pilot for Night Gallery. He was in the Richard Kiley Nazi episode. Nazis, you say? That's right, they're on the way. That's the fucking climax they've concocted for this film. And Angela Lansbury and a group of disadvantaged kids have to use magic to fight a Nazi invasion and knock those motherfuckers back into the Atlantic Ocean. Sound good? It's great. Well, almost. The movie is way too long. The theatrical version I grew up watching evidently had 20 minutes removed, and it's too long in that iteration. Never mind the restored version that includes all the stuff that was too ponderous for an already badly paced film. I'm just being honest. I'm recommending this movie outright, see it immediately on Disney+, but I am also recommending that this get the remake treatment. It wouldn't be hard, and it would be oh so timely. I think this is the kind of entertainment our kids need. Hell, I need it. I had a blast rewatching it, and the song Portobello Road is one of my all-time favorites. And hell, any movie that can get a bunch of children chanting in Latin is worth a rewatch and a reimagining. Have we talked enough? Have I? Did I make up for my absence last week? I hope so, but I am going to wrap it up and try to enjoy my Sunday. I mentioned the Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/Father Malone. You get episodes early and commercial-free, and bonus shows like Cable Box Theater, where Noise Junkies host HP and I take a look at filmed theatrical productions that showed up on cable TV in the early 80s. Or if you have no dough to spare, you can just share this show on your social media or like it or 5-star it. You know the drill. Tune in on Friday. HP is rejoining me. We've suddenly stumbled into a retrospective of the films of John Fusco. Last week we did Crossroads. Next time we're doing Young Guns. It's going to be a blast. That's on Friday.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.